But it's kind of like a mass that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
It started as just a speck in the sky, a cosmic anomaly falling through the darkness, cold, silent, unassuming, and then it moved. In 1958, during a year consumed by atomic dread and fears of the unknown, audiences watched transfixed as a gelatinous red mass, a being with no face, no motivation, no conscience, oozed its way through small-town America. It consumed everything it touched, growing larger, redder, and more relentless with every life it absorbed. This wasn't just another monster. This was a primordial force. The Blob was more than a drive-in creature feature. It became a cultural phenomenon, a scrappy, low-budget indie that launched one of Hollywood's biggest stars and perfected an entirely new brand of terror. This film shouldn't have worked. It was bankrolled by a church film studio. Its monster was made from kitchen supplies, and its star was a 28-year-old playing a teenager. But maybe that's exactly why it endured. It wasn't manufactured by the polished Hollywood machine. It was an accident, a glorious, terrifying, brilliant accident. These are 16 weird facts about the monster movie that changed sci-fi forever. Number 1. The monster was never actually called the Blob. It's one of the most iconic and instantly recognizable titles in horror history, yet somehow it's never spoken. Go back and watch the entire 1958 film. Not a single character, not the cops, not the teenagers, not even Steve McQueen himself, ever refers to the creature as the Blob. They call it the mass, the thing, or simply that stuff. The name itself, the one burned into pop culture consciousness, exists entirely outside the film's reality. It was a creation of the marketing department, a last-minute change from an even goofier working title. This omission is actually a subtle stroke of genius. Within the narrative, the monster remains nameless, an unclassifiable it. In psychology, naming a fear is considered the first step toward controlling it. By refusing to label the creature, the film denies its characters and the audience that fundamental comfort. It remains an unstoppable, unknowable force of nature. The title, The Blob, sold tickets and became legendary. But the absence of that name inside the movie? That's what built the dread. Number 2. It was made for pocket change and became a gold mine. The Blob wasn't born in the gleaming studios of Hollywood. It was the brainchild of a small, scrappy, independent production company based in Pennsylvania called Valley Forge Films. They scraped together a meager budget, approximately $110,000, to bring their bizarre vision to life. To put that in perspective, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, released the same year, cost $2.5 million. The crew working on The Blob was skeletal. The cast was filled with local talent and complete unknowns, and the production had to constantly innovate just to stretch every single dollar. Producer Jack H. Harris eventually sold the distribution rights to Paramount Pictures for what seemed like a respectable sum. But nobody, not even Harris himself, could have predicted what happened next. This little indie film about murderous red slime absolutely exploded at the box office, particularly in the drive-in circuit. It grossed over $4 million, a return of nearly 40 times its initial investment. It became one of the most profitable independent films of the entire decade, proving that you didn't need a Hollywood budget to create a monster. You just needed an idea sticky enough to capture the public's imagination. Number 3. Steve McQueen was 28, playing a teenager. The film's hero, the rebellious but earnest teen Steve Andrews, was played by an actor who was anything but a kid. Steve McQueen was 28 years old, married, and a Marine Corps veteran when he landed the role. He was a struggling actor grinding it out in New York, and this was his very first leading role in a feature film. The producers were initially looking for an authentic teenager, but McQueen's raw, nervous energy and undeniable screen charisma made him the only real choice. He wasn't just playing a teenager, he was embodying the entire idea of teenage rebellion itself. He famously took a massive gamble, turning down a smaller but guaranteed salary in favor of a 10% cut of the film's profits. The studio, convinced the film was just a small-time investment, agreed without hesitation. It was a decision that netted McQueen a massive payday when the film became a runaway hit. It was the first and last time a studio would ever underestimate him. He walked onto that set as a complete unknown, pretending to be a kid, and walked away a star. Number 4. The Blob itself was made from kitchen goo. The nightmare-inducing alien antagonist that terrified audiences wasn't some complex animatronic creation or sophisticated special effect. It was literally created in a studio backroom using a simple mixture of silicone gel and red aniline dye. The special effects team, led by Barton Sloan, needed a substance that would flow convincingly, glisten properly under the studio lights, and hold its vivid color on film. After experimenting with everything from Jell-O to melted rubber, they finally landed on this viscous concoction. By cleverly tilting miniature sets, the crew could make the silicone blob ooze and crawl, using nothing but the power of gravity. They filmed the attacks upside down and then reversed the footage to make it appear to climb walls and consume victims. And here's the truly bizarre part. The original prop still exists. It was never destroyed. The bucket of silicone and dye was carefully preserved by the film's producer and is now kept in a sealed container. It makes rare public appearances every year at the annual Blobfest, a living, or at least non-decomposing, piece of cinema history you can actually see. Number 5. It was almost called The Glob. A film's title is its first promise to the audience, its opening handshake. For The Blob, that promise almost turned into a punchline. The production cycled through several uninspired working titles during development, including the incredibly dry and academic-sounding The Molten Meteor. For a considerable time, the production team had settled on The Glob. Posters were being designed, promotional materials were being printed, and the name was starting to stick. It wasn't until producer Jack H. Harris discovered that a popular children's cartoon strip by Walt Kelly already used the name The Glob that they were forced to make a last-minute pivot. In a desperate scramble, Harris and the team looked at the title and made the simplest possible change. They swapped exactly one letter. The Glob became The Blob. It seems like an insignificant change, but there's real psychology at work here. Glob sounds soft, almost comical, like something a child would play with. Blob has a harder, more unsettling sound. It's blunt, visceral, slightly gross. It's a perfect example of the accidental genius that defined this entire film. A legal threat transformed a silly name into an iconic one, saving the monster's reputation before it ever hit the screen. Number 6. Hollywood didn't want it, so Pennsylvania made it themselves. When producers Jack Harris and Irvin Yeaworth pitched their wild concept, a faceless, consuming ooze terrorizing a small town, the major Hollywood studios were decidedly not interested. The idea was too weird, too abstract, too reliant on an unknown cast, so the team did what any determined filmmakers would do. They made it themselves. Instead of building elaborate sets on a Hollywood backlot, they used the real town of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, as their primary filming location. Director Irvin S. Yeaworth Jr. wasn't some Hollywood auteur. He was a local filmmaker who primarily made religious and educational films. The extras filling the streets weren't paid professional actors. They were actual residents who showed up for a few dollars and a chance to be in a real movie. This grounding in authentic reality became the film's greatest unexpected strength. The diner, the police station, the hardware store, they all felt genuinely lived in and real because they were real. This wasn't some artificial soundstage apocalypse. This was an invasion of our actual world. The iconic scene of panicked audience members fleeing the Colonial Theater wasn't just a clever scene. It was filmed at a real, functioning theater, still standing today. packed with real townspeople. The film's authenticity made the terror feel immediate and personal. Number 7. Its theme song was written by a future music legend. The film opens not with a screech of violins or a foreboding orchestral score, but with something completely unexpected, a bizarre, upbeat, almost jazzy pop song. The tune, officially titled "Beware of the Blob," sounds more like a quirky dance craze than a horror movie theme. This strange little earworm was co-written by a young, relatively unknown composer named Burt Bacharach. Yes, that Burt Bacharach, the future Academy Award and Grammy-winning icon who would go on to define the entire sound of pop music with unforgettable hits for artists like Dionne Warwick and Dusty Springfield. At the time, though, he was just another songwriter for hire trying to make a living. He and lyricist Mac David crafted a song that was intentionally campy, catchy, and completely unforgettable. The producers specifically wanted a novelty hit that would get radio play and serve as essentially free advertising for the film, and it worked brilliantly. The song actually charted, and DJs across the country spun the track repeatedly, turning the Blob into a pop culture curiosity before audiences had even seen the monster. It was a genuine marketing masterstroke, and easily one of the strangest entries in a music legend's entire catalog. Number 8. The Blob's attacks were just camera tricks and gravity. Today, a creature like the Blob would be a seamless, flowing entity of sophisticated digital code and CGI wizardry. In 1958, they had silicone, fishing line, ingenuity, and the fundamental laws of physics. There were no complex robotics or advanced mechanisms. To make the Blob attack convincingly, the crew painstakingly built miniature, highly detailed models of key locations, like the diner and the doctor's house. They would carefully place the silicone mixture on these models and then slowly tilt the entire set, letting simple gravity pull the ooze over the miniature furniture and fixtures. When the film was sped up or reversed in post-production, it looked exactly like a living, intelligent, crawling monster hunting its prey. For shots where the Blob needed to envelope a person, like the terrifying scene with the old man in the shack, they used simple matte photography techniques, or just smeared the colorful goo directly onto a pane of glass placed strategically in front of the camera lens. It was decidedly low-tech, completely practical, and remarkably effective. The film's effects weren't about photorealism, they were about suggestion and atmosphere. And somehow, the sight of that pulsating red jelly flowing menacingly under a door was more than enough to give an entire generation legitimate nightmares. Number 9. Paramount bought it for pennies and struck gold. After filming Wrapped, Valley Forge Films had a finished product but absolutely no way to get it into theaters nationwide. They took their weird little monster movie to the major studios, desperately looking for a distribution deal that would give it a chance. Most of Hollywood passed immediately, dismissing it as just another cheap, forgettable regional B-movie that would disappear without a trace. But a few sharp executives at Paramount Pictures watched the raw footage and recognized something special. They saw the vibrant color, the unique monster design, and the undeniable charisma of the young leading man. Paramount bought the worldwide distribution rights for $300,000, a relatively low-risk gamble that was just enough to cover the production's costs and give the creators a modest profit. That seemingly small gamble paid off exponentially and then some. Paramount aggressively marketed it to the teenage drive-in market, and the film became an absolute sensation. It was a classic Hollywood underdog story. The small-town indie film, initially rejected by the entire system, gets bought for pennies on the dollar and becomes one of the studio's biggest surprise hits of the entire year. Number 10. It stood out because it was in full color. In the 1950s, B-movie horror existed almost exclusively in a black and white world. Shooting in monochrome was significantly cheaper, much faster to process, and far more forgiving when it came to masking questionable special effects. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Them. It came from outer space? All the classics were defined by their atmospheric shadows and stark contrasts. The producers of The Blob made a crucial and genuinely expensive decision to shoot in full, vibrant, deluxe color. This choice was a massive financial gamble that significantly inflated their already tight budget and meant their low-budget monster effect would have absolutely nowhere to hide from scrutiny. But that risk, that bold choice, was precisely what made the film an enduring classic. The monster wasn't just another vague shadow lurking in darkness. It was a visceral, pulsating, shockingly red mass that seemed almost alive. The vivid color made it look organic, like a pulsing organ or a mass of exposed, raw tissue. It contrasted horrifically with the muted, earthy tones of the peaceful, small-town setting. The aggressive red of the Blob, the cool blue of McQueen's iconic jacket, the warm neon glow of the diner sign. Every color popped off the screen with startling intensity. In an entire sea of gray, shadowy monsters, the Blob was a splash of pure crimson, and audiences simply couldn't look away. Number 11. Steve McQueen was secretly smoking on set. Steve McQueen's legendary rebellious king of cool persona wasn't some carefully crafted act. It was genuine, even at the very beginning of his career. Despite playing a supposedly clean-cut, all-American high schooler, McQueen was a heavy smoker in real life and openly chafed under the production's insistence on maintaining a wholesome, family-friendly image. In one particularly famous scene filmed inside the police station, if you watch extremely closely and know where to look, you can spot a tiny, seemingly inexplicable wisp of smoke rising mysteriously from behind McQueen's back. He wasn't allowed to smoke on camera while in character, so he was literally hiding a lit cigarette in his hand, held carefully just out of the frame, sneaking quick drags between his lines of dialogue. It's an incredibly tiny, almost invisible detail that most viewers would never notice, but it's a perfect metaphor for the man himself, the 28-year-old actor, pretending to be an innocent teen hero, literally breaking the rules right in front of the camera. The carefully constructed illusion of the all-American teenager was, quite literally, shrouded in a thin veil of cigarette smoke. Number 12. A tiny calendar accidentally froze the movie in time. In one of the scenes set inside the small-town police station, the camera briefly pans past a cluttered desk. Sitting prominently on that desk, in relatively clear view, is a small, ordinary desk calendar. The page is turned to July 1957. This wasn't some deliberate, artistic choice by the filmmakers. The film was released theatrically in 1958, but principal photography actually took place during the summer of 1957. The calendar was simply an overlooked prop that the busy set dressers either completely forgot to change or honestly didn't think mattered enough to bother with. The production was moving so incredibly fast, operating on such a razor-thin budget, that this tiny detail just slipped completely through the cracks. For contemporary audiences watching in theaters, it was a completely invisible error. But for film historians and obsessive fans decades later, it's a fascinating, accidental time capsule. It permanently anchors the film in its precise moment of creation, an unintentional but perfect timestamp. For a movie about a seemingly timeless creature that appears to defy all natural laws, this little continuity mistake ironically grounds it permanently in the real world. Number 13. The Blob has its own massive annual festival. Most B-movies from the 1950s are long forgotten, relegated to obscure late-night television slots or dusty film archive vaults. The Blob is emphatically not most movies. Every single summer, the town of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, the actual real-life filming location for the movie, hosts Blobfest, a full 3-day weekend festival celebrating everything about their most famous, slimy, fictional resident. The event has grown exponentially from a small, quirky local gathering into a genuine international pilgrimage destination for sci-fi fans from around the globe. The absolute highlight of the entire festival is The Running Out, where hundreds of enthusiastic fans pack themselves into the historic Colonial Theater to watch the movie together. Then, at the exact precise moment it happens on screen, they collectively reenact that famous scene, screaming and running frantically out of the very same physical theater doors that were used in the original 1958 film. The festival features elaborate costume contests, bustling street fairs, live music, and even special displays of the actual original silicone prop monster. The town that was once cinematically invaded has now fully, enthusiastically embraced its gelatinous invader as a source of pride and tourism. When The Blob first oozed its way into theaters back in 1958, it was widely seen as completely disposable entertainment, a cheap thrill for a Saturday night date that would be forgotten by Monday morning. But it turned out to be something else entirely, an accidental masterpiece, a perfect storm of low-budget necessity, raw, undiscovered talent, and genuinely bizarre luck. It launched the legendary career of Steve McQueen, gave Burt Bacharach one of his very first hits, and proved conclusively that a monster didn't need fangs, claws, or even a recognizable face to be absolutely terrifying. All it really needed was to be red. Just impossibly, unnaturally, viscerally red. Decades later, the film stubbornly endures. It's actively celebrated, enthusiastically reenacted, and genuinely beloved by devoted fans who weren't even alive when it was originally released. The film's legacy, much like the creature itself, just keeps growing, consuming, spreading, and refusing to die. The Blob taught Hollywood a valuable lesson that still resonates today. Sometimes, the strangest ideas, the ones born from kitchen goo and church basements and sheer desperation, are precisely the ones that stick around forever.